Moody Coquitlam.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, and I will be sharing my time with the member from Vancouver Kingsway. I'm using my time this evening to focus on men in this country who have disproportionately been affected by inadequate drug policy. They deserve better than what the Conservatives have tabled in this House. New Democrats care about getting people the help they need and supporting families and communities that have been hurt by the toxic drug crisis. We know the devastating effects of opioid addiction, and we know that it is disproportionately affecting men, and men in trades who build our housing and infrastructure and who maintain and fix critical assets for cities, provinces, our federal government, and who drive the economic prosperity of Canada for private resource extraction right across the country. In my home province of BC, where the economy has been booming for years because of construction, we can see the effects this is having through the life expectancy rate of men. As the life expectancy in BC is on the rise for women, it is on the decline for men. This is the first time in recent history, Madam Speaker. This is shocking, as it is a result of increased deaths among younger men related to illegal, toxic drug supply. The men in this country deserve better. They deserve an immediate and national public health response, not a criminal one. And men that work in trades are dying alone. Managing their pain and addiction alone is a reality in this country. And the construction boom, although necessary and good for the economy, continues to put more and more stress on these workers, often making them work excessive hours, long periods without breaks, and work remotely away from family and other supports. This can mean these workers become isolated, exhausted, and can suffer from chronic injury pains that they cannot take time off to heal. Turning to drugs to get relief from the pain, we need to do better for these men who are giving their life to the economy and for the economy. When we think of the men who work in trades, we often have images of hard-working, stoic, strong men. This is a well-earned reputation. But behind this strength, many of these men are fighting a silent battle against addictions with nowhere to turn for help. Half of all workers dying of drug overdose in this country are working in trades. The lack of destigmatizing education of these drugs and the lack of supports offered to these men is heartbreaking. But worse, Madam Speaker, it's killing them. The Conservatives don't acknowledge this. They call these workers criminals. They did it today, Madam Speaker. I recently heard a very tragic story about a young plumber who died of an overdose alone in the basement of their parents' home. His family chose not to have a celebration of life because of the stigma that comes from addiction. Madam Speaker, this is not an isolated story. The NDP knows that we must treat the toxic drug crisis as a public health emergency rather than a crime. And all of us here in the House have the responsibility to reduce the stigma so that we can end this tragedy. I cannot imagine a family that could not mourn their son in public because of stigma. And I say this directly to the Conservatives. This is why the New Democrats support expert-led advice to include a safer supply of substances of known potency and quality to keep people alive until they are ready to seek or have access to treatment. In Alberta, the situation is even worse. 3 out of 4 people dying in Alberta of drug overdose are men, and the majority of those are men in trades. These men isolated in camps and working the oil fields in northern Alberta, like in the town of Wood Buffalo, where 2023 was a record year for opioid deaths and the deadliest year on record for Alberta, with 1,660 deaths that can be attributed to non-pharmaceutical opioids like fentanyl. The tough-on-crime approach of Conservatives have further pushed these men into isolation and hopelessness. In Alberta, to make matters worse, when found out that they're using drugs, these men lose their jobs. Those companies that are making billions of dollars are firing these men and not offering help. They are even at risk of being arrested so that the UCP can show that they're tough on crime. But of course, the Conservatives don't want to talk about the failures of the Conservative premiers across the country as they jail people who need help and help rich CEOs force more workers into addiction. Families and communities continue to suffer because of the toxic drug crisis, but the Conservatives are here to make it worse. But Madam Speaker, I want to say there's hope. There's great work being done, and in BC, there's groups like Tailgate Toolkit, which aim to educate tradespeople working in construction by ensuring they have access to harm reduction services and support. The same services the Conservatives want to cut, leaving these workers without any help. And now we've learned the Leader of the Opposition wants to put these men in jail with no rights after denying them access to help. The Conservatives in this House are more than happy to give a free pass to premiers like Danielle Smith when she lets overdoses kill hundreds of tradespeople working in the oil fields in Alberta. But the NDP, can be seen in BC, are working hard to find solutions. They want solutions. So I close, Madam Speaker, by saying there are many great people working towards solutions all over the country. In my riding, Chloe Goodison has been doing incredible work through the nonprofit she founded in 2021 called Nalox's Home. She's a first-year student at SFU, and her nonprofit has widespread pickup and widespread notoriety now. She is based in Port Moody and delivers free, destigmatizing drug education, an education that would benefit these Conservatives, I think. Harm reduction saves lives, Madam Speaker, and I raise my hands to Chloe and the great work that her and her team do.